know, I'm a black man, and I am just totally irritated at the media. I'm irritated at Obama with, instead of, pointing out the bullshit of the white racial resentment in this country towards black people because Obama is in the White House, and many white people feel threatened by the idea of the blacks are taking over, as though all of the Fortune 500 companies and businesses suddenly got handed over to the black people, and now black people are in economic and political control of this country, which is absolutely absurd, with us only being 14% of the population. But you have all these white people who, despite Obama being 50% Caucasian, they see him as a black man, one drop rule created by slavery in order for white people to keep their wealth and power exclusive, while black people go around, running themselves into racial obscurity and racial ambiguity, and can't even create a black identity around who they are, and that creates all type of issues of self-hate and colorism and wanting to be white, and all that type of stuff that white people just really do not understand, and I don't even feel like breaking it down and explaining it to them, because they don't think on that level. They're just like naive and lolly lolly la, and it just must be wonderful to be white in America. But then you got the Fox News and other Second Amendment advocates, which I agree with, but I'm just saying, they're countering what Obama's saying with, they should have had a gun. And I agree that, there should have been more African Americans that had firearms. I mean, at least, there's 300 million guns in this country, and it's something like only like 1/3 of the population actually owns a gun. And 74% of that population is male, and disproportionately white male. And it's not to say that you don't have blacks who have guns. There's guns in the black community. They may not be rifles, but it'll be handguns. And I don't know what the statistics are, because there are many black men who illegally possess firearms, who are, involved in the narcotics trade because of the deindustrialization of this nation, and there's no jobs in inner cities. And so, they got to do what they got to do, because, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. That's what the situation is in inner cities. So there's a lot of black men who have guns, but I'm not focused on the ones who have them illegally. I'm focused on the ones who have them legally, which is a very small percentage of African Americans. Now, it may change and be different in different regions. All I know is that, culturally speaking, in the African American community, guns and the Second Amendment are very unpopular. And they're unpopular because guns are vilified and demonized the same way that, whites demonize, young black men and thugify them no matter what they're doing, whether they're justifiably angry or not. And, they associate guns with, gangster behavior and what they see in rap videos and all that other stuff, right? So, Big Mama, who goes to church every Sunday and praises white Jesus, she doesn't, like guns, and don't even get me into the whole pacifist aspect of white people giving black people white Jesus, and then black people are out there worshiping the image of a white man, which allows for white supremacy to continue, and black people to, view, white people or the image of a white man as an authority figure better than they view themselves, which creates more self-hate. White guy walks into this South Carolina church and, shoots 9 black people, and black people's knee-jerk response is to respond with buckets of white Jesus and how Jesus loves and we forgive and all this other crap. And, I already know that if a black man walked into a white church and shot the place up, white people wouldn't be talking that shit, despite the fact that they'd be running around talking about white Jesus. They would say, praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. You know, but black people, they don't respond like that. And truth be told, many white people don't want black people to respond like that. And then the white people who actually support the Second Amendment and are now jumping up and saying, yeah, that black people should have guns to defend themselves because they don't want their guns taken away. Secretly, deep down inside, in the back of their mind, they don't want to see African Americans, especially young black men with guns, whether they're doing illegal shit or not illegal shit. It makes them uncomfortable. You know, so there's a contradiction right there. And so that's annoying, because I already know that the people who claim that they, oh, you know, those black Christians in that church, there should have been somebody in there with a gun to defend themselves. But when you get to the level of, you know, the politics, you know, the laws are created to really, you know, keep guns out of the hands of young black men because of the, you know, the criminalization of young black men, and, you know, not looking at the, you know, prolonged exposure to poverty and the economic disparities in this country that create that. Like, so it's like there's always this oversimplification of, you know, black men and guns, and then something like this happens, and then next thing you know, the very people who don't want to see black men with guns are singing a different tune, because the other conversation is take guns away from everybody, white people included, right? So it's just so utterly, you know, annoying. You know, I'm reading this article, this Los Angeles Times article, about the number of times that guns have been used in homicide, in self-defense, where the homicide was justifiable homicide. And the whole article is bullshit, because it doesn't even address the times when somebody, a law-abiding citizen, pulls out a gun in self-defense and the person who is the attacker or the criminal runs away. Right? It's like comparing the number of people who are killed by criminals with guns, which is something like 8,000, right, for the whole United States. Keep in mind, you know, there's 300 million guns out there, and the vast majority of them aren't killing anybody, right? And, you know, it's trying to compare it to the when somebody who's law-abiding actually kills somebody. You know, how many times is a gun pulled out and the criminal either gets on their hands and knees and the police come and they're arrested as the person, you know, tells their wife or, you know, partner or husband or whoever to call 911, tells their son call 911. All you have to do is go on YouTube videos and pull up, you know, guns being used in self-defense, store clerks holding the guy at gunpoint until the police come. I mean, this has already been shown, but they don't want to talk about that. Then on top of that, you got the aspect of the second, you know, the well-regulated militia argument. And people don't, like, what the Second Amendment people need to do is stop trying to reinterpret the Second Amendment and how it was written, because the Founding Fathers did a shitty job of writing that piece. They did a horrible job. It's so arbitrary that it can be it's like the Bible. It can be interpreted all different type of ways. It's like all the holy books out here, the Quran, you know, in one instance, oh, it's about peace and love and this, that, and the third, and in the next minute, it's all about Allahu Akbar, kill the infidels, boom. So, like, it can be interpreted all different type of ways. I hate the Second Amendment and how it was written. But in order to get the context of the Second Amendment and why it was written, you need to go to the Declaration of Independence and read the Declaration of Independence past, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and property, and, you know, that part. Get past that part and then go to the part where it says where you have a tyrannical government and the government doesn't serve the people, then the people have a duty to overthrow that government. Yada, yada, yada. So on and so forth. That's what it says. That is what the Second Amendment is for. Okay? To you know, worry about a tyrannical government. It's not for hunting. It's not for any of these other things. It's for worrying about a tyrannical government. And so anybody who wants to jump up and say that people shouldn't have military-style weapons, then they are basically saying that the best way to challenge the government is with your bare hands. If the government were to become tyrannical and slaughter its population like what you see in Iran or what you see in Egypt, right? I mean, that's basically what they're saying. I mean, we already can't have fully automatic weapons like the military. We already can't have tanks. We already can't have MRAPs and Humvees and grenade launchers and all of the type of stuff, right? I mean, you can have a fully automatic weapon, but you got to go through all that, you know, Form 1 and Form 4 and all that other stuff, and register your firearm and all that crap that you got to do. But I'm saying most people aren't going to do that, right? There's no fully automatic weapons after 1986, so all the fully automatic weapons that exist are really super expensive, so nobody's going to do that, right? You got, you know, single shot rifles, and they're trying to take that away. And so I guess, you know, if there ever was an apocalypse or something happened for future generations, I guess everybody's just going to go out there with their 10-round magazine handguns, while the police and the army and this National Guard and everybody else, they all have their fully automatic AR-15s with 30-round magazines. You know, I mean, that is what the Second Amendment was established for. It disgusts me at how African Americans have been through so much in this country in terms of white racism and social injustice, and always want to bitch and cry about how the evil white man is out to get them. And you got cops shooting black people in the back. You got you know, cops choking black people out for selling loosies. You got cops jumping out the car shooting 12-year-old kids playing with toy guns. You know, as though in the movie The Christmas Carol, what the boy didn't get for a Christmas, and they were talking about the whole time about shooting his eye out was a goddamn BB gun, but a black kid with a BB gun, oh no, he's a grown-ass criminal with a gun, oh, shoot him. You know, a black guy in a Walmart with an airsoft gun, oh my God, you got to shoot him. You don't even give him a chance. But a white guy walks around, you know, being a dickhead with his cell phone, you know, talking about it's my God-given right, and walking around scaring the hell out of everybody, you know, and standing in front of a school, mouthing off at the cops, you know. But then when a black guy so much as gets indignant about being pulled over for speeding when he didn't get pulled, when he wasn't speeding, and then the cop body slams him on the car and then he gets shot, white people jump up and scream, oh, well, if the nigger would just comply, if he would just comply. But yet white men have the luxury of making YouTube videos walking around talking about, you know, it's my God-given right. The Second Amendment, this is an open carry state. You know, the hell with you, copper. Am I being detained? Am I being detained? All right, then we'll kiss my ass. That is exclusively a white privilege. But yet you can't even get white men to acknowledge that type of shit. You know, and then what's the other thing that irritates me? It was another article where they were talking about something. Hold on, I'm actually going to pull it up. Yeah, here's the other one. You know, it's like church shooting. South Carolina wants to make the gun laws easier in South Carolina, you know, with this whole tragic shooting. I don't even know how that white boy got the gun. Apparently he's saying his father bought it, and then I'm hearing stories that he bought it. Whatever. He doesn't have a criminal background, right? So background checks wouldn't have stopped shit. There's nothing stopping anybody who has a firearm from going over the deep end in the next 3 seconds. There's nothing stopping that. And what people want to ignore is that you got 300 million people in this nation. Okay? And I don't know what percentage of people who have guns, but it's a lot of them. And most of those guns don't do anything. They don't harm anybody. They're not killing anybody. You know, they're used for self-defense and in the event that the government decides to go rogue. That's what they're used for. Okay? But like this article, you know, it tries to make this point about the fact that it takes a good guy to stop a bad guy with the gun. a good guy with a gun to stop a bad guy with a gun, but most of those guns aren't used in that manner. And then it goes through like this whole list of, you know, guns being used in domestic disputes, gun being used to commit suicide, and all this other stuff. And then talks about how all these scenarios are more likely than there to be a mass shooting and the gun to be used in self-defense. And I'm sitting there and I'm reading this shit and I'm saying to myself, well, that contradicts itself if they're trying to make a point out of that, because all that does is reinforce the fact that it's more likely for you to get struck by a lightning bolt than for you to be the victim of a mass shooting, or for you to be even present at the event of a mass shooting. Right? And people are running around screaming like mass shootings are happening all over the place. All the time. There's mass shootings, all over the place. Yeah, because the media wants to cover it all the time. But when you think about how many people are in this nation and how many guns are floating around, and they always want to point to mass shootings. You know, they're talking about the 9 black people died in the church. And what about the freaking 147 or whatever it is black people that died in Baltimore? You know, because you got drug dealers blasting on each other, right? Right? Because with those riots, you had the people who exploited the riots and then took out the drugs from the pharmacy, and then all those drugs flooded the street. And then now you got all these turf wars and then the personal shit. You killed my brother, you killed my cousin. Now I got to ride on you like Cain and Menace to Society and all that other stuff, right? You got all that going on, right? That's where the real homicide is. Right, but it's like everybody only gets sensitive about mass shootings. Nobody gets sensitive about the homicides that happen every day. Like, does anybody not watch the First 48? Like, do you not watch that show? Right, that type of shit is happening every day, and most of it is related to inner city, concentrated areas of poverty. That's what it's related to. And there's been no national push, you know, to try to deal with that situation outside of the context of we must restrict more guns. I'm saying, in real talk, the move hasn't even been to restrict more guns in these inner city environments, because in the inner city environments that are predominated by black people, those guns are already restricted by the Democrats, who come in and say that they're trying to save more black lives and whatnot, when the real goal is just a bunch of white elitists who want to keep guns out of the hand of niggas in the fucking first place. That's what the whole shit is about. You know? But instead of addressing poverty, so that we can eliminate all the inner city black on black crime, which is based on the narcotics that white people, the CIA, dumped in the black community in the 80s. Okay, instead of dealing with that, no. They wanna, you know, use that to bring in more gun control, and then half the time they're not even talking about that. They're only talking about deranged white boys who go off and shoot little children, or shoot a church full of black people, or you know, kill their whole family in rural part of America or something like that. They always want to talk about that. You know what I mean? But those incidences are far few and in between compared to the amount of bodies piled up based on concentrated inner city poverty and the drug and narcotics game that revolves around that, and the violence that is going to come out of that. Okay? You know, the drug dealer can't say, hey, this other drug dealer stole my drugs. Officer, can you please go get my drugs back for me? No, he has to save face. He has to go out there. He has to kill somebody. He has to make it known this is my territory, so on and so forth. This is common sense, people. It's common sense. But nobody wants to talk about that. They don't want to talk about the institutionalized racism and the legacy of the discrimination in this country against African Americans that creates that type of shit. You know? But instead we throw up these statistics about you're less likely to defend yourself in a mass shooting, so the idea of having more guns to defend ourselves against mass shooting is ridiculous. And I'm like, well, all that does is point out how rare mass shootings are. Because not only are you unlikely to be there, it's also unlikely to be there and have a firearm to defend yourself. I mean, you got to come up with two variables of something that's already rarely happens. Then on top of that, you got to actually be there when it happens. And then on top of that, you actually have to have a firearm there to defend yourself
And so the person that's writing this article is throwing up that, chances are, the gun would be used in other negative things as opposed to the mass shooting. I'm like, well, yeah, I get your point, but at the same time, you're also pointing out how rare these mass shootings are. Why don't you superimpose that against the backdrop of how many guns are actually out there that are not being used for violent crime, and they're being used to defend them, themselves and people who legitimately need them, like Carol Bone, in New Jersey, who was recently murdered because some guy tried to kill her, did kill her, who was her ex-boyfriend, and she got a restraining order, but, you got to go through this long-ass, arduous process in New Jersey, and therefore she didn't get her permit in time, and it was on hold because New Jersey state troopers love to, just sit on it, and not only that, state troopers and the county love to just sit on permits and, just take their sweet time, and she ended up getting killed. Why don't you go talk about that story? But the anti-gunners are not going to talk about that story. There needs to be some balance in the media if anybody wants to have a serious conversation about guns and ways of keeping guns out of the people who, shouldn't have them. Shouldn't have them. I mean, we're talking about apples to oranges here, when in one breath we're talking about inner city black-on-black crime based on the narcotics game, right? And I hate the term black-on-black crime because you kill people where you live. Right? You kill people where you live. If I was Chinese and I was in China, you ain't gonna call it Chinese on Chinese crime, right? If I was a Native American on an Indian reservation, you're not gonna call it Indian on Indian crime. Nobody's calling Mexicans killing each other in Mexico a brown on brown crime, or out in L.A. with the gangs. They ain't calling it that, right? But here you have a group of people who've always been discriminated against in this country, and are stuck in these caged off communities with zero opportunities, and people are surprised that they're killing each other trying to survive in that sort of environment. I don't like it as much as the next man. I wish they would all come together and challenge white supremacy economically, as they should. But the whole point is to keep those people in the dark, keep those people, in that type of situation, so that they don't ever develop into the type of people that can challenge white supremacy, so that the very thing that caused this white boy to go into the church and shoot all the people up, which is the fear of the blacks taking over. The stupid thing is, white people should have figured out a long time that blacks really ain't trying to take over, on top of the fact that it'd be impossible for black people to take over because they only make up 14% of the freaking population. And if more black people were treated as equals in this country, then black people could go off and contribute to this nation and make it a better nation. But white people got too much innate fear and superiority complex and everything else for that to ever happen. Shit, there could be some black kid who's in the city who's going to develop into the next drug dealer, who could be the next person to develop, a warp drive, or figure out, how to bend space-time so we can travel to another damn solar system or something. He could be the next Black Einstein and everything. But you know what? He's not going to develop that growing up in an impoverished environment, going to a shitty-ass school, that's underfunded, gets the shittiest, scared-ass white teachers who are more scared of the black students and only want a paycheck than they care about freaking developing these people. And developing these students. 85% of all teachers are white females. You really expect white females to teach black males how to economically compete against white males? I think not. I think not. It's a damn joke. It's a joke, and I'm tired of this circular ass. I'm tired of all the intellectual dishonesty coming from the white people. I'm tired of black people being stupid and responding inappropriately to white racism. Hell, I wish white people were more racist. That way black people would get it, instead of all the fucking two-faced racism that they do, where one minute black people think that they love him and everything's getting better and kumbaya to keep black people pacified so they don't grow up turning into the next Malcolm X or something like that. You give them the illusion of inclusion. That way they don't turn off and snap and turn into, a militant black person. You know, that's the whole goal. You know, oh shit, a smart black guy. Throw a white woman at him and bring him into the white suburbs. We'll tolerate one or two. That way he doesn't become a leader amongst his people to, you know, so that they rise up against us. That is white people's biggest fear. And they will always want to jump around and act like that's not their biggest fear. Bullshit. I call bullshit. You know, I wish that black people would be more serious about defending themselves. You know, because there will always be white people in this nation who will fear you, and they will fear black people and allow themselves to be manipulated by the white controlled media, whether Republican or liberal, you know, throwing around all these messages of making them feel like, you know, black people are out to get you. Black people are out to get you. Okay? And they're going to do that. And I'm saying, so because you got these dumbass, naive, have nothing in their bank account white people who feel that way, we have to be able to deal with them when they want to get stupid. Plain and simple. That's just what it is. You know, and if the white people who want to defend their Second Amendment, who really secretly behind closed doors don't give a fuck about black people, want to support us in that fleeting moment, fine, so be it. Go to an NRA conference and everything. But beyond, you know, keeping the Second Amendment so that black people can defend themselves, I could give a fuck about them people. Because I already know how they feel as it pertains to, being around and socializing with black people and all that other shit. You know, when you talk about, hey, what's up with a job, they talk about, hey, I ain't got nothing for you, nigga. You know, this is for white, these jobs is for white folks. Knowing damn well that black people need resources to take care and maintain the integrity of their community the same way that white people need resources to maintain the integrity of their community. But yet they want to run around and act like black people are supposed to maintain the integrity of the black community with no resources, no businesses, no economic wealth, and just purely buckets of Jesus alone. Clearly, I direct you to your nearest black community, and you can see how ineffective that shit is. You know? Hell. You know, you want to see what a white community looks like with no fucking resources. It looks the same as the black community with no fucking resources. I direct you to freaking what is it, Hazard, Kentucky? I direct you to the closed up coal mine towns and whatnot in Appalachia, where all the white people are strung out on painkillers and Dilaudid and morphine and oxycodone and what other drug off the top of my head can I think of? Valium and all those type of drugs and shit. Right? You know? I mean seriously, Percocet, again, you got a community, you got a situation where there's no jobs, you don't have men taking care of their families. You don't have men taking care of their families, then you have boys who are growing up without male leadership. Boys who grow up without male leadership try to find alternatives to define their manhood. When they go out there and find alternatives to define their manhood, you end up with Mad Max and the Road Warrior. Black version and white version. White version is usually motorcycle gangs and all that other stuff, that bullshit you saw in Texas. Black version is what you see with the rap videos and the gangsters and all that other shit. It's the same fucking shit. It's just white and black, but it's the same shit. It's just slightly culturally different based on the environments and, you know, the cultural differences and whatnot. But at the end of the day, take out the resources, you know, no father figures, poverty, you end up with the same shit. You baby mamas, you know, same crap you see with the white trailer parks. Problems, social issues, kids failing school, same crap. Teen pregnancy, same crap. You know? And I mean, like, sometimes I look at white people, I'm like, what the fuck were you doing? Like, to let the shit just get out of control. Like, even I don't even know if the black community can be fixed at this point. You know? Like, it would have been better to just have black people operating like Chinese people and having a black Chinatown and all that other stuff, you know? And then all this stuff about crime and all this crap and you know the violence that may spill out of the black community on the white people, that wouldn't even be a topic of discussion. It wouldn't even be a topic of discussion. Because black men who are working and making money and taking care of their families ain't out there robbing people. You know? They're not out there shooting at each other and gang, you know, drug dealers and whoever in malls and stuff like that, and having people get hit by stray bullets. They not doing that shit. Y'all just, it's like the whole, America sucks, man. I swear to God, it just sucks. It's just, the whole conversation sucks. Rarely do you get people that go up on television and talk some damn sense. They always got their little agenda. The liberals, they got their fucking agenda. The conservatives, they got their agenda. Nobody's up there just talking sense. Like, look, yeah, it's fucked up over here in this situation, and it's, messed up over here in that situation. But here are the elements of truth. Unfortunately, yes, you will have people who will respond, a certain way, but don't try to act like it's unreasonable for them to respond that particular way given the circumstance that they were born into or that they were given, or so on and so forth. It should be understandable, but instead people don't want to acknowledge stuff like that. Can't stand the whole conversation. I wish that black people would defend themselves and get off all this pacifist mentality of thinking that the buttery goodness of Jesus is going to save them. Here you had a bunch of black people. Y'all were in white Jesus's house. Y'all in white Jesus's house, and white Jesus didn't protect you. White Jesus didn't make them bullets go around the 9 people who were killed. The weight of the white boy's sins did not prevent him from opening up those doors. When he sat in there for an hour, the spirit of Jesus didn't wash over his soul and make him not shoot. This is why I wish black people would get the fuck out of Christianity and get the fuck out of religion. Because the problems that we have are not spiritual problems. The problems that we have are economic and structural problems. Those are our problems. We deal with that, then everything else will fall into place. And then if you want to take your extra time and go deal with the buttery goodness of the Lord, then go off and deal with the buttery goodness of the Lord. But personally, I don't think that shit has any effect on anything. And I think that 400 or 500 years of being Christian in this country and still being treated like shit for that 500 years clearly demonstrates how ineffective the buttery goodness of white Jesus is for black people. White people can say that, they've been rewarded, because of the goodness of Christ. That's just absurd to me for them to even say anything like that. The way that they've treated their fellow human being in this country as a collective of white people for the last 500 years. And then to turn around and act like, they get first dibs on getting into the pearly gates of heaven. I'm like, are you serious? Are you serious? Have you read a history book? Have you recognized what your people have done? But then you run around and want to act like, like they operate in a mental vacuum where they're just operating in the white suburbs, and damn how what we do and the lifestyles that we live affect other people, not only in America who aren't white, but in the world, but yet we get first dibs on getting into heaven. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? All the rape, pillage, and plunder and genocide that the white race has caused, globally speaking, from the genocide of the Native Americans to slavery of the Africans, I'm saying all within the past, you're only talking the past 200 years. 200 years. You're talking about an insane amount of millions of people, hundreds of millions of people just gone because white people saw some land and they wanted to take it. And then they had the audacity to say that they're the moral compass for the world. It's absurd. It's absurd. It's like, if everybody wants to hit the reset button and say, okay, can we all get past that? Okay, then start acting like it. Start acting like it. Personally, I don't think any of it's going to go away because I already know that it's all about, a group's genetic survival and all that other stuff. None of that's going away. None of the tribalism is going away. You know what I mean? That's why I don't subscribe to any of the buttery goodness of the Lord and God and Jesus and all this other crap. It's a bunch of crap. Because at the end of the day, I know it's all about a competition between human beings. And at the end of the day, if a white guy is not going to take food out of his mouth in the name of Christianity, or food out of the mouth of his children because he sees a starving black family, he's not going to do that. You know, despite all in the name of morality and all that other stuff, they're not going to compromise their position and give up their position of power in order to save some black people. They're not going to do that. You know, which is why, again, I wish black people would get away from religion, because, friggin', knowing the Lord is not going to stop white people from continuing to maintain their position of power, economically compete against you, make sure that they're always winning. That's not going to stop, because you know Jesus. It's just how the world operates. It's an ugly place, and that's just what it is. It could be a beautiful place, but it would only be a beautiful place if mankind or human beings looked at each other as one big family, and there wasn't any sort of idea of one's own individual genetic survival, and it's just not going to play out that way. It's not going to play out that way. People, there's an intimacy to your own family or your own ethnic group or whatever that just is not shared amongst human beings. It's just not there. It's like how women will show same group preference, but men don't show same group preference. Men will throw other men underneath the bus quick, fast, and in a hurry for some pussy. But women, on the other hand, they tend to join each other. But the way that groups interact is more akin to the way that men interact amongst each other in terms of throwing each other underneath the bus, more so than the way that women interact with each other. Women show same group preference. Men don't. And groups are not going to show same group preference. Oh, hey, human being. Hey, human being. Oh, we're both thirsty. Hey, why don't we work together to get some water? Sure. No. One will always sit there and say, I want all the water. I don't care if they die of thirst. So, with that said, wars will continue, violence will continue, murder will continue, what is war? War is justified homicide. That's all it is. Justified homicide. Right? You got to think about it. Two nations, typically two old white men who can't settle a beef, they send all of the young men to go and slaughter each other. And then you end up with a whole generation of young men who are all dead because two old men had beef that they couldn't settle. I'm like, why don't you give the fucking two old men 2 guns and get them to walk 50 paces and turn and shoot at each other? I challenge thee to a duel. As opposed to sending millions of men to slaughter each other based on the concept of that they're the leader of the group and their group needs something and they want total control of it versus the other group, so there can't be a compromise, and so we murder each other. It's just a crock of shit, man. People can talk about the way that it should be and could be and love and rainbow and Care Bears and unicorns and all that other bullshit, but when you really come down to it, shit ain't gonna change. It's the same fucking way. And with that said, how do black people need to be? If that's the world that you live in, you gotta be cutthroat. You gotta be as cutthroat as the people who are fucking with you. You gotta be cutthroat. You gotta be ready to put somebody in the dirt if they threaten you. You gotta be economically competitive. You gotta be ruthless. You got to be as ruthless as the people who are trying to dominate you. And white people already know that as it pertains to themselves. They just want to make sure that you don't ever come to that realization. Which is why black people are socially, economically, and politically at the bottom and continue to be so. Plain and simple. That's all it is. That's my video. I'm out.